What's going on, everybody? You're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, and you're listening on North Coast Underground. We'll be right back after this song. Make sure you don't go anywhere. Yeah, we'll be back.
If you love wisdom, put your mind up to the ceiling. Don't let it stay in the gutter. Don't let your heart get all cluttered. No, I did not stutter. Listen to all that I've muttered. Your life will only go well if you in wisdom are lovers.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
You and I. You and I.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
Yes, it most certainly will. This is your host, JC Johnson, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom. If you were listening on the first hour, we started a conversation with Ricardo Andrews from Seek in Silver Spring, Maryland, and we're actually going to be continuing that after the break. It's an awesome conversation. He's sharing a lot of insight as it relates to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But the focus of today's show is not disabilities, but focusing on these individuals' abilities. We'll be right back.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside.
Hey, what's going on, Wisdom family? Each week on For the Love of Wisdom, we promote a new and free audiobook that we believe you will benefit from and become wiser by listening to. On today's show, we're talking about the wisdom of ability. And so, the recommended book for this week is Be Different by John Elder Robinson. This book is about how a person having an intellectual disability doesn't mean that they're sick, but just different. To download this free book today, just visit audibletrial.com/lovewisdom. Audible is spelled AUDIBLE, so that's audibletrial.com/lovewisdom.
It's your boy, Tear It Up, Tommy Tom from Beyond Sports, and you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom
with your host, Jason Johnson.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And we're always live Thursdays at 4 o'clock on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. So the topic of today's conversation, as we're here in hour 2, we're discussing the wisdom of ability. All right, so we're talking about people that have intellectual and developmental disabilities, but we're talking about how we're not just focusing on those disabilities or the limitations that they have, but the abilities that they have, because they have many abilities, just like you and me have abilities, right? And they have worth and value just like we have worth and value, and it's time that we recognize them and acknowledge them for that, right? And not just look at them as some, weird people or just like outsiders or, people that we don't want to really, talk to or be around because it makes us uncomfortable. But no, sometimes there are some difficult topics, some things that do make us uncomfortable. But I think that it is important to talk about it just so that we can grow as people. I know for me, because I work in the field with individuals who have these intellectual and developmental disabilities, and by that I mean people that have some impairments that make it maybe difficult for them to learn, or in a way that's a little bit slower than maybe another person that doesn't have that, and even people that have physical disabilities, which cause them maybe to be wheelchair bound, or just to need extra assistance getting around, people to get them dressed, to shower them, to clothe them, things like that. And yeah, I've been in this field now for maybe about 7 years, and it's definitely changed my life. I know that before I got into it, I had a certain perception about people that had disabilities. It did make me uncomfortable, because if you're not used to that, sometimes you don't know what to do. You don't know what to say. You don't want to come across as rude or whatever, or sometimes you just because you don't know how to handle it, you feel like it's easier to just ignore them or avoid them at all costs. But once I really started to work with them and to see them not as people with disabilities, but to see them as people, period. You know, no other words that we have to use to characterize them or to categorize them, but hey, they're just people, just like I'm a person. And when I began to really start to see that, it changed my life. And I've worked with a lot of individuals over the years, different people. There's one guy I remember, he was pretty cool. This guy really liked Justin Bieber. And I remember, one day we were out and he saw a poster of Justin Bieber. He just was like going crazy, like he was like, oh my gosh, Justin Bieber, and I thought that was funny, but this guy was serious, and he actually went to a Justin Bieber concert, and that was awesome because that was somebody, some music that he really enjoyed, and he was able to experience that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And he actually got to go with some other people that he knew, and it was a great experience. And sometimes we take those kind of experiences for granted because maybe me or you, if we want to just go to a concert or something, we just say, okay, hey, I'm just gonna go online or stand in line at the box office, and I'm just gonna go buy this ticket, and I'm gonna go with whoever I want to go with, and simple things like that. Or even not even just that, maybe something as simple as going to a movie theater or even going to a restaurant, whether that's a sit-down restaurant or a drive-through. Those are things that, we oftentimes have the luxury to just do. But people with disabilities don't always have that choice because a lot of times they're dependent upon other people to do that, to take them with them so that they can experience that. So it's just something to keep in mind. I did, since today we are talking about the wisdom of ability, I want to, really just highlight different organizations that I feel are really on the front lines when it comes to providing services to individuals and providing resources. And one that I came across recently when I was at a training is an organization by the name of Open Future Learning. And they are awesome, right? They have hundreds, maybe even thousands by now of videos that help people. It says inspirational training for the developmental disability workforce. All right, I just saw a couple of videos recently. They made a rap video. They even made a country music video. They're doing some awesome things. So just some information about them. They're collaborating with some of the most revolutionary thinkers and leaders in our field, and they've created at the time over 500 short films, right, that can be used for educational purposes. And these, as it says on their site, these powerful and often emotive films are embedded into the contents of each module. And the films capture the invaluable experience of these people and inspire anyone that uses them by bringing the learning to life, right? Because this is really important and something to keep in mind. If somebody does have either an intellectual or a physical disability, sometimes it can be hard to simply, pick up a book or even attend a training or something like that. But this brings it, it brings it home for a lot of people. It allows them to access this information on their phones or their tablets or their computer or whatever. And I think it's great. I think it's great what they're doing. If you have a chance, you can check out one of their music videos. It's called It's My Home. And I believe they do have that on YouTube as well as on their website, so you can check it out. It's pretty cool though. It's pretty cool. And in the video It's My Home, it talks about a guy who receives services. He receives supports, but he's talking about the fact that, hey, you might come to my house to work with me and to help me, but just remember, this is my home, this is my house, so don't treat it like it's your house, right? And if you don't work in the field, you may not understand it fully, but just to briefly explain, usually when a person receives supports, especially people that receive, 24-hour support, oftentimes they have staff members that come into their homes to work with them. And sometimes, hey, they might just really make themselves at home. They say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and turn the TV on and I'm going to watch whatever I want to watch. Or, hey, if I need to go somewhere, or I need to go and, pay my light bill, well, I'm going to go ahead while I'm on the clock and I'm going to take this person with me because, hey, what are they going to do about it? I need to, do some stuff for me, right? But the point of this video is to say, hey, you're working with me, right? You work for me, not the other way around. So you're on my time. So we should be doing things that I enjoy. If I want to eat a certain meal, then I should be able to eat that, not just eat what you want me to eat. Or if I want to watch something on TV, like, hey, maybe you don't want to watch SpongeBob, but you're at my house, so I want to watch SpongeBob right now. So please stop turning to whatever you want to watch. Maybe you want to catch the ESPN highlights, but I don't want to watch that. I want to watch this. It's just talking about stuff as simple as that. And I thought it was really cool. Definitely something you should check out. The video's called It's My Home. I think you'll like it. When we come back from the commercial break, Ricardo Andrews is going to be joining us again with the conversation, and he's going to tell us about his work at Seek in Silver Spring, Maryland. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, what's up? It's your girl Queen Z from the Queen Z Show, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are back. This is your host, JC Johnson, on For the Love of Wisdom, and we're here today with special guest Ricardo Andrews. So, hey, we're glad to have you with us today. Thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon.
Anytime. I'm glad I can join.
So, for those people that are, there are, I'm sure, many parents who are listening to this who say, you know what, I need something like this for my son or daughter. And maybe they don't know where to look. Maybe they don't know where to start. If somebody wanted to become part of an organization like Seek and receive the types of services that you're delivering, how could they do that?
Sure. So I think there are many routes to do that. The traditional route that usually focus on is the school effort. And so once a child is identified with disability, usually that's a notification or indication throughout that child's life to have the right support, such as IPE, on an individualized education program where schools set goals for each child as they're going through schooling and what have you. In generally around a preteen, teenager time frame, schools will host school fairs where they'll bring different organizations such as Seek to these fairs, to where parents and members alike can get more information about organizations, to kind of understand how each organization operates, how it doesn't operate, what services are provided. And so I would strongly advise any parents, family members, and or circle of supports to engage in these conversations, because that's what they're designed for. They're designed to help people, because unfortunately there is a time limit for funding. And so I know there's more so, it's more so said that at the age of 21 is the last time where someone can register for these long-term supports where you're working with an organization. Some and don't quote me on this, but some areas I know go up to about 22, but that's the latest. I would not wait that long. What happens, unfortunately, with some people with support, people with disabilities that need supports, is if they don't apply for these long-term supports with, their state, unfortunately, they have to rely only on the short-term supports that are afforded by the American Job Centers, the voc rehab centers I've been referring to. And those are more short-term supports. what happens is you're not always connected to the same person or the same representative. Sometimes in certain areas there's a wait list. So I strongly advise people to engage into that. And if their schools have not offered that or don't have that available, reach directly out to these American Job Centers. You can reach out to any job center that's focused on the employment efforts within your state. Usually they're located within main cities, but it's an easy Google search to kind of locate your nearby one, because they also have recommendations. I would say referrals and recommended service providers for each person.
There's a conference coming up, and we talked about it a little bit earlier on the show. It's the APSE conference.
That's correct.
APSE, and it's actually coming up on June 26th in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. So, so when it comes to APSE and what they do, like what's your understanding of that?
Sure. So I love APSE. So APSE stands for the Association of People Supporting Employment First. And essentially, this is a professional conference. This is of every field. You have a conference or a credentialing body that looks to professionalize the field. And so in nursing, you may have one. In engineering, you'll have one. And so within supporting people with disabilities, you'll look to APSE. It's one of the accrediting bodies for the employment supports. And basically, it's the focus on this Employment First initiative, which is a national initiative that focuses on employment being a priority for people with disabilities. And one of the reasons that is because many of times, and historically, that hasn't always been the primary focus. When referring to services for people with disabilities, has always been a reference, or the dialogue has always kind of gone towards, well, how do we care for a person? How do we make sure this person is safe? How do we make sure this person is forwarded to a day program, for instance? And what we know about employment is that's where you find these natural supports. You find these real relationships. You find a sense of confidence within yourself, and also develop a skill and a competence. And without that avenue, you kind of miss out on a lot of life skills that many adults, if not all adults, learn from naturally, whether it's internships, whether it's externships, whether it's part-time, full-time, volunteer gigs. This is really focusing on developing each person's abilities naturally. And so what I always have a training about with people that are coming into Seek is understanding the dynamics of what employment first means, especially as it relates to each person. And so what this does is it raises expectations. It shows that people with disabilities can work, that they can earn a living wage, that they can contribute to society as a whole, while also individualizing that approach without giving someone a traditional job that may be seen as a job for a person with disability. It's raising expectations. It's truly helping each person understand that if someone says, "Hey, I want to live independently. I want to sleep in on the weekends. I want to have a townhouse, for instance." But there are certain steps that you and I may know about that gets us there. So first and foremost, how are we going to pay for it? That's one of the most obvious questions. And when we find ourselves within the field of disability, we don't always ask that question. And we find that the expectation isn't always there for that person to learn and understand that concept, that a person, without actually saying it, will always live in poverty. And Employment First is basically raising the expectation to say, no, we need to strive for the best. We need to help each person, whether it's adjusting the way we teach or train someone, to identifying skills outside of just a bag or at a grocery store. People have abilities that are very valuable to organizations. We just have to think very creatively. And I think that's what APSE is designed to do. It's an avenue where you learn what professionals are doing all around the country. You'll meet people from Kentucky, California, Delaware, Maine, all over. But it's a great venue for people.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really helpful. I'm sure that a lot of people, even those that do work in this field who didn't know about it, I'm sure that now they'll be glad to hear about that, so they can sign up.
Yeah, check it out. And I was going to say, I think APSE was at Ohio not so long ago, and I'm trying to think about it.
Yeah,
I think it was in 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah, and I know there is an event here in Ohio called Opera as well, and they have their annual events. And I know they're affiliated with the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, and I know Seek has been working with them as well.
Exactly. And one of the greatest things about APSA, just to kind of fill in as well, is when I mentioned about the credentialing piece, there is an examination that like many fields offer that focus on this idea of competency. And so they offer what's called the CESP certification, which is it's basically the certification for employment specialists that focus on many aspects of what people within that field kind of need to be mindful of as the field ever evolves and grows. So this certified employment support professional certification stamps you as one of those professionals that has the knowledge and competency that distinguishes you as an employment support professional that have shown the skills and competence to perform your job in a sense. And so they offer that at every conference, and as well on their website they kind of shows locations that are available for that.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So we are getting ready to go to a commercial break, but we'll be right back to conclude our conversation with Ricardo Andrews. You're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. We'll be right back.
You're now listening to For the Love of Wisdom on NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with who? No other but you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. And we've been talking with Ricardo Andrews. What's going on, Ricardo? Hey. So I know you got to get ready to get back to work soon. We really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Well, I'm glad I can provide it. It's a privilege to speak on this venue.
So one other thing that I did want you to talk about real quick is Indeem, because we've been talking about employment and how Seek has been able to help individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to really focus on their abilities and put them to work within the employment realm. But it wouldn't be possible for them to do that without the employers, right? So exactly. So tell me a little bit about Indeem and what partnership Seek has with that.
Sure. So Indeem stands for the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So every October, it's a recognition of employment within the field of people with disabilities. And so celebrating disability inclusion, which actually just hit more than 70 years, in fact. And so this is a national initiative to where we recognize that. And so, it's very important that we bring awareness to why it's important to include people with disabilities within the workforce. There are many benefits that range from diversifying your workforce. And one of the best pieces of research that I always take away is people with disabilities actually have a higher retention rate at jobs, because once he or she finds something that they truly are skilled at and like, they stay. There's no reason to leave. They enjoy the environment, they enjoy the people, they enjoy the work. And so we find once we do it right, once we identify the right employment opportunities, that people have less call-outs, people have less reasons that they don't show up to work. People stay at these jobs for 25 plus years. And basically how Seek has used the Indeem platform, the national platform, is by celebrating employers and recognizing them every October. And so Seek holds a breakfast, usually in the middle of October, an Indeem breakfast, where we recognize employers. We recognize the employers that have been with us for over 5 years, more the longer standing employers that have had a long commitment with us. We recognize the employers that have been with us less than 5 years, the newly developed relationships that have understood to some extent what we're doing and said, hey, I think I'm liking this idea. Let's give it a shot. And we also recognize an employee as well, whether it's their duration of being at the job site, whether it's them adapting to changes that the organization was faced with. We recognize, as a job seeker as well. And it's a great event because it provides multiple, I would say, resources and benefits. One, it says, hey, we're not just an organization that's take. We're giving as well. This is a mutual relationship. Some organizations haven't grasped that concept yet. That is not just a take. You have to understand that the business itself wants a mutual relationship. And so this is one of the, I guess you could say, low-hanging fruits to where you're basically thanking an organization for their partnership. Two, it provides a networking experience. We've had partnerships with CVS, NIH, Smithsonian Museum, Embassy Suites, Montgomery County government, and we have representatives that, that network and that, would love to have a venue to have a breakfast or a 5-minute chat with someone that they've been trying to reach out to for months. And so it provides that secondary benefit as well. But it also provides a tertiary benefit to where you're able to be recognized amongst your peers and seen as one of the leaders within the disability inclusion wave, as I like to refer to it, and be truly recognized and thanked for. And it's a great venue. I think what it does is that when we're looking towards this Everyone Works initiative, which is, about raising expectations, it helps others learn as well. We also leave it as an open invite to organizations and ask the organization that we've invited to bring a +1, bring somebody who would love to learn about inclusion and have some free breakfast and networking. And so it's a great venue to where people learn about not just the field, but about what the community at large is doing.
Hey, that's awesome, man. And that's really important. We definitely have to appreciate the employers that really support the work that we're doing because, without them, it wouldn't be possible. And employment is very important because without employment, you can't make money, right? And without money, correct, you can't eat, right? So
that's correct.
So really, with working with individuals, we want them to be able to, learn how to become more self-sufficient. Of course, there's always going to be things that they need assistance with, but ultimately, promoting that community inclusion and independence is really important.
Exactly. And one of the greatest pieces, just to add on, is, in raising expectations, understanding that, I think one of the things that I've learned, one of my personal lessons that I've learned from the field is that people need help. And that is completely fine. Everyone needs help at least once in their life. And I'm being modest in saying that because we need help a lot more than that. When it comes to this field, unfortunately, that's emphasized a little too much. We don't think towards independence. And just going back to this Employment First initiative, that's what it's all about. You understand that, if someone has a hard time starting up because whether cognitively they can't grasp the concept or if it's the lack of understanding of a field, we're here to support them towards that independence so that they are respected and seen as an equal amongst their peers and coworkers.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? Because I know that you said about a month ago you actually stepped into a new position at Seek.
Sure. Yeah. And so right now, just about a month ago, I just transitioned into a new role. We have a department that's focused on what's called knowledge management. That's focused on really understanding how knowledge is acquired, how it's transferred, how it's trained throughout the organization. We learned that like many organizations, sometimes there are best practices that need to be shared. And so we're trying to focus and figure out how to ensure that the organization as a whole is understanding and knowledgeable of what that means. And so we focus on initiatives such as community of practices. And so that's very helpful because you bring in frontline supervisors who on a daily basis are met with challenges, but have a venue where they can reach out to their peers and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? How did you handle this?
Right.
I know the policy says this, but, theory and practice sometimes it's a bit difficult to implement. We also focus on recruitment and retention efforts, understanding that right now within this field there is, and it will be continuously be a workforce crisis, to where with minimum wage raising every year, that many professionals that are coming in with these basic entry skills, we're competing with a lot of organizations, whether it's fast food industry, hospitality, and we just have to figure out how to creatively incentivize and understand, help interested applicants to understand a career path within this field as well. And so many initiatives that really focus on best practices, trainings, sharing resources and things of that nature. I love, and long story short, so I'm a project manager that focus on many initiatives. So one of the biggest pieces is understanding career paths within this field. And so right now we're in the process of developing a career lattice and ladder pathway, so people can understand that, if you start off as a direct support, you can make a lateral move, a move upward vertically, to become a supervisor, frontline support, a manager. But then if you truly love your job as well, there's a lattice you can take. You can maybe specialize in specific areas of expertise. Assistive technology, communication skills, mentoring, things of that nature.
All right, hey, well that's awesome. It sounds like you have a lot of good things ahead. You got a lot of work in store for you, though. But that's really good, man. Congratulations on the new position.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We are going to a commercial break. So when we come back, we are going to conclude the show, and we're going to look at a little bit about, what the Bible has to say about treating people well, regardless of their abilities or lack thereof. But we'll be right back after this. You're listening to For the Love of Wisdom on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
Hey everybody, you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
With your host, Jason Johnson.
All right, welcome back everyone. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And you're listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. We're about to conclude our broadcast for today, but I couldn't leave you without giving you some knowledge from the Bible. Today we're talking about the wisdom of ability, and I feel like the greatest place to go for wisdom is there in the Bible. So let's see what it has to say. We were joined earlier by Ricardo Andrews. He phoned in from Maryland, and we appreciate him for stopping in with us, even staying on a little longer than he had originally agreed to. So we really appreciate that. Let's take a look at Leviticus 19:14. I think it's really relevant as it relates to what we're talking about today. All right, it says, "You must not curse anyone who is deaf. You must not do anything to make a blind person fall, but you must respect your God. I am the Lord." And I think that that's really important. There are some people, and it may be hard to imagine if you're someone who wouldn't do something like this, but there are people that actually, make fun of people who have disabilities, or, they try to purposefully do things that make it hard for them. And I think that that's not right. That's not okay. We should definitely not do anything like that. And this says it plain right here that we shouldn't do it. This is what God said. This is not what I had to say. If you want to go against that, then that's on you. I wouldn't recommend it though. All right, here's another one. In John chapter 9, verses 1-3, it says, "While Jesus was walking, he saw a man who had been blind since the time he was born. And Jesus' followers asked him, 'Teacher, why was this man born blind? Whose sin made it happen? Was it his own sin or that of his parents?' And Jesus answered, 'It was not any sin of this man or his parents that caused him to be blind. He was born blind so that he could be used to show what great things God can do.'" And I think that that's really interesting, because sometimes we wonder, why would God allow somebody to be born with a disability if he knows that their life is going to be hard? But as we can see right here, sometimes God allows things for a reason, and hey, those reasons are beyond what you or I might know of, right? But hey, God is all knowing. He's awesome, so he knows what he's doing, right? So I guess we can't argue with him, because you see in this case, it looks like this guy who was born blind, that was actually used so that through God healing him, it was actually able to speak to a multitude of people. It was able to show people God's power. And I think that God still does that today. You know, you may not see a person who was blind receive their sight in a literal sense, but God performs miracles all the time. We just have to pay attention. All right, then if you look at Exodus chapter 4, verses 10 through 14, this one is it's pretty interesting. It's a kind of funny story here. It's an exchange between Moses and God, right? And Moses is complaining because God is asking him to go out and speak, but Moses is telling him like he has a speech impediment. You know, he has a problem with speaking that's going to make it difficult. So it says, Moses said to the Lord, "But Lord, I'm telling you, I'm not a good speaker. I have never been able to speak well, and that hasn't changed since you started talking to me. I'm still not a good speaker." He said, "You know that I speak slowly and don't use the best words." So then the Lord said to him, "Who made a person's mouth? And who can make someone deaf or not able to speak? Who can make a person blind? Who can make a person able to see? I am the one. I am the Lord. So go. I will be with you when you speak. I will give you the words to say." Right? And I mean, hey, if sometimes you look at that, it's like, wow, if God said that to me, I think I'd be straight, right? I'd be pretty cool. But Moses said, "My Lord, I beg you to send someone else, not me." Right? So then the Lord, you know, he had it shows here he's, you know, kind of like wishing that Moses would have a little bit more faith. But he says, "All right, I'll give you someone to help you. Aaron, the Levite, is your brother, isn't he? He's a good speaker. In fact, Aaron is already coming to meet you, and he'll be happy to see you." And I think that this is perfect as we're talking about today the wisdom of ability. And we were on the phone earlier with Ricardo Andrews, and we were discussing, you know, providing supports to people that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And, you know, it's just a great reminder that sometimes we might struggle with certain things, we might have some difficulties, but that doesn't mean that, you know, God is going to leave us without the help that we need, right? So, you know, God was, you know, merciful to Moses, and he was able to give him some assistance, right? He was able to provide Aaron, his brother, to be able to help him. So, hey, no matter what we go through, you know, no matter what our physical or our mental or intellectual limitations are, you know, if we trust that God is with us, then we don't have to worry about that, right? So I think that's great wisdom for today, and we are running out of time, but I really appreciate you for joining me today on For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And you know, you can catch us every Thursday at 4 p.m. on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. And this is a broadcast of the Ohio Media School. We really appreciate you tuning in. And if you know someone, if you'd like your music, if you're a local artist, you want your music to be played on the station, you know, you can send that in to North Coast Underground. Your songs will be looked at, you know, they'll be listened to, just to make sure it's something that will fit with the format of the station. And if it is something that'll work, they'll definitely reach out to you and try to get you on. So this is a great platform for anyone wanting to get your music heard. So I would definitely recommend it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. This is your host, JC Johnson, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom. We'll be back next week, and we'll get into more. All right. See y'all later.
Knowledge is power, power is money, and money makes the world go round. Money, power, respect, I get it higher, learning, yeah, I'm winning. Only get better with time, keep God on my mind with wisdom, there's no limit. There's no limit, get up and get it. Can achieve the impossible, conquer every obstacle. Exhausted from grinding, constantly push and do what they say I could. Life is what you make it. Knowledge is power, don't let them take it.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
You and I. You and I.
If you're in love with Truth will surely rescue